Thanks for tuning in to Barber Shop Sports Talk.
You're listening to another episode of Barber Shop Sports Talk with me, Daryl Lane, your host as always. We got a jam-packed show today. Chris Crittenden, the host of the Average Sports Guy podcast, will be coming on the show. I cannot wait for that. I will love to see what Chris has to say. I believe he went to the same high school as my man, who is a co-host with me for What's Your Take, that can be found on JCU Television. Just had to get that in there as always. From the same area, same high school, I believe. The U of D High School. No one might be mad at me if I pronounce that wrong, but no one thinks it doesn't really matter. So, can't wait to have Chris on. We're going to talk a little bit about Michigan. I definitely want to talk to him about that because there's some things I disagree with him a little bit. We're going to tell you who the two dumbest guys in Washington, D.C. are, who Baker Mayfield reminds me of, and why we need to stop getting so caught up in the hype with the Philadelphia Eagles, with Carson Wentz, and even my Los Angeles Rams, who I know I've actually called them now since I picked them to be a surprise team this year with Jarrod Goff. Well, why would we need to stop being so high on them? Not that we don't need to stop being so high on them, but why we need to stop putting them on this pedestal? Because there's another team that's coming, another quarterback that's coming, a young quarterback, by the way, and I'll tell you all about that. But speaking the Philadelphia Eagles and Los Angeles Rams, it goes back to this age-old saying. You need a quarterback to win. The LA Rams beat the New York Giants 51-17. The Rams found their quarterback in Jarrod Goff. The New York Giants need a quarterback now. Eli Manning looks like hot garbage. The Philadelphia Eagles won 51-23 against the Denver Broncos. That no-fly zone defense. It looks sort of like they might have quit the game. Chris Harris Jr. and all of them. Aqib Talib, Von Miller, because their quarterback play is atrocious. So what's the point of trying to play if their quarterback play is so atrocious? Philadelphia Eagles got a young quarterback, Carson Wentz, Trevor Siemian, Brock Osweiler, and Paxton Lynch. I don't even think they combine together to make me a quarterback half as good as Carson Wentz. But I have to go back to this. You know, in life, there is always an exception to the rule, right? Just because everybody else does it, it doesn't mean you have to do it. And it doesn't mean it'll always work out for you. You know what? My junior year of high school, was in this vocational program, Kenton Bosse Center, right? Lots of people used to cheat on the test. One kid in particular, and he asked me, Daryl, well, why don't you cheat? And I was like, man, I'm not good enough to cheat. It's not that maybe he wasn't tempted sometimes, because I guess everybody at some point thinks, but I was like, I'm not as good as you. I'll get caught. Then the teachers will call my parents. I'll be the one getting in trouble. I'll be the one getting my butt whooped. So it doesn't work out for me. So why? Why take the risk? That's real life. There's a lot of things that are exceptions to the rules, but we shouldn't always try to do because it doesn't make any sense. There are people that have high income that didn't go to college. They can work out for you well if you didn't go to college, and you can have an extraordinary high income. But the Bureau of Labor Statistics says education pays. It showed the median weekly earnings of a college graduate is $1,000 per week, and those of a high school graduate is $500. That's half. That's half. You will make infinitely more money, more times than not, a sizable amount more money if you go to college than if you went to high school. Now, it doesn't mean you can't try the other route. It just means it lessens your chance for success. You might not think genetics matter in professional sports. You don't need to be 6'7" to play the NBA, which is the league average. But you know what? Genetics, they sort of do matter a little bit. In the history of the NBA, there's only been 25 players that have ever played 5'9" or lower. So yeah, it increases your chances dramatically if you're 6'7". You might not think who your parents are really don't matter. But children from violent homes have a higher risk of drug and alcohol abuse, post-traumatic stress disorder, and juvenile delinquency. So, Your parents kind of do determine who you are. And now, there's this thing in the NFL where we can win without a quarterback. We don't need him. We don't need a quarterback. Baloney. The best team of this decade, the New England Patriots, 5 championships. Tom Brady, greatest quarterback ever. But if you want to argue, what about Tom Brady? That's just an outlier. 5 rings, Tom Brady. Okay. Since 2000, QBs who have won Super Bowls. Kurt Warner, Hall of Famer. Ben Roethlisberger will be a Hall of Famer. Peyton Manning will be a Hall of Famer. Drew Brees will be a Hall of Famer. Aaron Rodgers will be a Hall of Famer. Russell Wilson, if he keeps going on this track, he will be a Hall of Famer. Eli Manning, arguably a Hall of Famer. It's debatable. Now, what about the quarterbacks that didn't? Because some people point, look at the 2000 Ravens. Yes. Trent Dilfer, won. Not a very good quarterback. 2000 Ravens. But let's also remember the Ravens had arguably the greatest defense in NFL history. They had Ray Lewis and Rod Woodson, transcendent defensive players. Then there's Brad Johnson, mediocre quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But we need to remember the Buccaneers had one of the best defenses ever. John Lynch, Rondé Barber, Warren Sapp. Yeah, really good defense. Peyton Manning in 2015, he was old. He couldn't play anymore. You know what? That team had Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware, the no-fly zone. You can make an argument they are one of the greatest defenses ever. And they had Peyton Manning, by the way. But even if you want to argue that with me. So, if you do not have a quarterback, the only way we're assuming you can win is if you put together one of the greatest defenses of all time. And I will notice about all those teams, they didn't repeat. They never won another Super Bowl. They didn't. But Daryl, what about when Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl? Yeah, you might have got me. I could make an argument. That is the only outlier. That's the biggest outlier. Didn't have a great defense. But Joe Flacco played like a Hall of Fame quarterback in that playoffs. He was at like 11 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Was super hot. So the Ravens were getting extraordinary quarterback play. That's why Joe Flacco won Super Bowl MVP. If you really want to go there. So, to really win a Super Bowl, what you need is a Hall of Fame level quarterback. And if you don't, you need a transcendently great NFL defense. That's what you need. With Hall of Famers all over it. All over it. But how many times does that happen? How many times? Not often. You know, you want to know why the Los Angeles Rams are winning now? Because they have Jarrod Goff. You want to know why the Philadelphia Eagles are winning now? Because they have Carson Wentz. You want to know why the Houston Texans were winning before Deshaun Watson got hurt? Because they had Deshaun Watson. This isn't rocket science. And you want to know why the Cleveland Browns are awful? Because they have Deshaun Kaiser, and before that, they didn't have much else. Quarterback is the name of the game. That's why the 49ers traded for one in Jimmy Garoppolo. That's why teams give up heists to get them, a la the Washington Redskins, where they traded up with the St. Louis Rams at the time to get Robert Griffin III. That's why teams do stuff like that, because quarterback is the name of the game. But one former quarterback, John Elway, doesn't seem to think so. And as a result, a culmination happened this weekend. They got destroyed by the Philadelphia Eagles, where it looked like the Denver Broncos defense quit on their musical chair 3 of quarterbacks, who are atrocious. Atrocious. I just have to say that again because they're just bad. The Broncos quarterback play is just, it makes my eyes hurt. It really does. Trevor Siemian, Brock Osweiler, and Paxton Lynch. It's hard for it not to hurt your eyes, actually. Even for a Denver Broncos fan, I think it hurts Denver Broncos fans' eyes. How could it not? They're better off bringing back Tim Tebow, who's completing less than 50% of his passes. Siemian and Osweiler have combined for 47 touchdowns and 42 interceptions. Pretty bad. And Paxton Lynch, this is the kick about it. Paxton Lynch can't even get on the field because he can't beat out those two guys, apparently. That is an awful quarterbacking room. When John Elway and the Denver Broncos were winning, they had Peyton Manning. And they caught fire one year when Peyton Manning was old and was not him. And they had an historically great defense of all time. So you want to know what? You can't expect mediocre QB play, they take you places. You can't expect that to win your rings, NFC championships, AFC championships. You can't just expect that. Like I said, there's an exception to every rule. But don't always try it. Because the exception to every rule is a special case. Floyd Mayweather can't read, and he's a billionaire. Don't try that at home. Don't try to not be able to read and try to be a billionaire. LeBron James, no formal education outside high school, yet one of the most intelligent and well-spoken dudes I've heard. Yeah, that usually doesn't happen for a reason. People that are exceptions to the rule are special. Situations that are exceptions to the rule are special. So let's not just bank everything on it like John Elway has seemed to do. Now, it's time for my Week 9 NFL predictions. I was 8-5 this past weekend. Bills at Jets. I had the Bills winning 20-17. I was wrong. That is a typical Buffalo Bills game. I don't want to hate on the Bills for too much. That is a typical Buffalo Bills game. Thursday night, prime time, and you lay a dud against the New York Jets. Colts at Texans. I was wrong. I had the Texans winning, and the Colts beat them. Bengals at Jaguars. I was right. I had the Jaguars winning. Buccaneers at Saints. I was wrong. I had the Buccaneers winning. Rams at Giants. I was right. The Rams won, and they spanked the New York Giants. Put 50 on them. 50. Falconeers at Panthers. I was right. The Panthers won. The Falcons just look like an emotional shell of themselves. Julio Jones drops that wide open pass by Matt Ryan. It's done for the Falcons. It's done. I don't know how they can come back. Broncos at Eagles. I was right. The Eagles won and put up a 50, another 50, on the Denver Broncos, who I quite frankly think quit on their atrocious quarterbacks. Ravens at Titans. I was right. The Titans won. Cardinals at 49ers. I was wrong. The Cardinals won. Redskins at Seahawks. I was wrong. The Redskins won, and what was a shocker, I did not see that coming. The Redskins beating the Seahawks in Seattle. Chiefs at Cowboys. I was right. The Cowboys won. Raiders at Dolphins. I was right. The Raiders won. And Lions at Packers. I was right. The Lions won. And the Lions should have won, even though I was talking to Noah Taluki, co-host for What's Your Take on JC Television that can be found on YouTube. Noah was like, oh, why does everybody keep saying we should have won? Because the Green Bay Packers didn't have Aaron Rodgers. Was like, duh, Noah. The Green Bay Packers should have lost and Detroit Lions should have won. This isn't hard to figure out. But my man's Noah sometimes can get caught up in his feelings, especially when it's about the Lions. But coming up next on Barber Shop Sports Talk, I'm going to tell you who the two dumbest guys in Washington, D.C. are, and they're not in the White House. Coming up next on Barber Shop Sports Talk.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, yeah. Hit that two-step, I know you can do that. Never had the rhythm, baby, tie the loose end.
You just heard rapper, singer TQS. He does all types of music. If you want to feature, contact him at taekwonwarren004@gmail.com. I repeat, if you want to contact him, it's taekwonwarren004@gmail.com. $50 for a hook, $100 for a verse. But wait, there's a caveat. It could also be for free if he likes the beat, verse, or if he likes the hook. Contact TQ West. Oh, we're back with Barbershop Sports Talk, and now I'm going to tell you who the two dumbest guys in Washington, D.C. are. Bradley Beal and John Wall. Bradley Beal is dumb, saying, I feel like we're the best team. That's just the way I feel. I always stand by it because, why would I sit here and say another team's better than my team? I'm not going to sit here and do that. I've got confidence in myself and my teammates and what we can bring to our team and what we can accomplish. Then, dumber. John Wall says the Cleveland Cavaliers dodged the number 1 seed to avoid the Wizards last season. I think they understand what we can bring to the table. If you look at last year, people might say they did or didn't, but I think they didn't want the number 1 seed for a reason, because we would have played them in the second round. Now, I don't know about you, but what I hate most in the world is when unqualified people speak and talk like they're qualified about something and puff their chest out and act like that they got something to say and they know what they're talking about when they don't. It just makes you look foolish. After Bradley Beal and John Wall said those things, they played the Cleveland Cavaliers. You want to know what happened? They got blown out. The Cleveland Cavaliers put up 130 points on them. There was no extra quarters. They put up 130 points on him in 4 quarters. That's pretty embarrassing. LeBron James put up 57 points, 11 rebounds, and 7 assists. The Wizards got blown out. John Wall went 4-13 from the field and played atrocious. That's why John Wall is dumber. And Bradley Beal is dumb, even though he played well, 11-13 from the field. Because he said that, and then they get lit up like that on defense. That's why Bradley Beal is dumb and John Wall is dumber. But it's just like, who the hell are the Wizards? Who? I know they play in Washington. I mean, that's all I know. Newsflash, guys. Newsflash. Beal and Wall haven't even made a conference finals yet. In the Eastern Conference. This isn't the Western Conference. This is the Eastern Conference. Last year they won 49 games. They didn't even win 50 games. In the East, they lost the Celtics in the conference semis. They didn't deserve to face the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they would have got their butt whooped like the Boston Celtics did. This is shameful and immature. You know, John Wall and Bradley Beal could have at least had the decency to talk after they beat the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's how it so happened to go down. But to talk mess before the game? John Wall, you're shooting 40% from the field, 29% from 3, and shooting 68% from the line. Bradley Beal. But Bradley Beal's playing solid, by the way, actually. Bradley Beal's averaging like 20 points per game. But Bradley Beal's shooting 30% from 3. And Bradley Beal is known as a marksman. So why isn't Bradley Beal getting his game up from the 3-point line? And both of them with their defense. The Washington Wizards are giving 110 points a game. That is 6th worst in the NBA. That is awful. Both of them need to be held accountable for that. Both. So Beal and Wall can talk, chirp. But you know what? Here's some advice. Don't talk when you've done nothing to talk about. Talk is cheap. Actions, they speak louder than words. This is stuff you say to 5th graders. And now, John Wall, and Bradley Beal look like clowns. Look like Bobo and clowns. Bobo and Andy. I'm calling Bobo and Andy the clowns. It's a joke. Even Tyronn Lue was laughing. When the reporter told Tyronn Lue about what Beal and Wall said, Tyronn Lue was laughing like, these are some fools. He's like, these brothers just don't know, do they? He just doesn't know. And you want to know, LeBron's laughing too. This is why LeBron doesn't respect the Eastern Conference. This is why, because he has to deal with childish stuff like this. LeBron's like, why would go to the West where the real teams are and the real players? Why not stay in the East? Why? Like, why not stay in the East? Why? This is garbage. John Wall, Bradley Beal, dumb and dumber. Coming up next on Barber Shop Sports Talk, I'm going to tell you who Baker Mayfield reminds me of. Coming up next.
Yeah. So I know. Tell me your location so I know. Yeah, I ain't really tryna run it up on you. Tell me your location so I know. I ain't really tryna run it up on you. Tell me your location so I know. Yeah, I ain't really tryna run it up on you. Tell me your location so I know. I ain't really tryna run it up on you. I'm just counting checks, it's like a band, that's a band, yeah. If you come by, I can show you all the bands. Don't know everything, I got demands, yeah. Everybody trying to come around and man. Always telling that we just the best. I ain't really got a problem if you wanna test.
Oh, we're back for Barber Shop Sports Talk. And I want to talk a little bit about, people do stupid things, you hang around with stupid people. And it bites you in the butt. LiAngelo Ball, LeVar Ball's second oldest son, plays for UCLA. Right now, he is held in captivity in China for allegedly stealing some, I don't know what it was at a store in China with 2 other people on the basketball team on UCLA. And it's just, I think it's stupid. I mean, and you have to realize when you're in another country, you can't do petty stuff like that. I mean, you can do that in America and everything will work out for you. You might not even get arrested or whatnot, but you can't do that in China, where things work a little bit differently. So it's pretty foolish on LiAngelo Ball, but I want to say that this isn't LeVar's fault. This can happen to any kid, any place, any time. This has nothing to do with LeVar and how we raised his kids. I don't want people saying that, but that's why I was going to bring that up. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on the show. But now it's time for a little crazy, lazy, or maybe. Bill Belichick chimes in on the Jimmy Garoppolo trade. It's not sustainable. The way things are set up, it's definitely not something we wanted to walk away from. I feel like we wrote it out as long as we could over a period of time. We explored every option possible to try and sustain. But at this point, it felt like we had to make a decision. Maybe? Bill Belichick's right. I don't know why you pay a backup quarterback starting quarterback money, especially when Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't even proven himself yet on the NFL level. The dude's played like 2 games. I'm not paying him franchise quarterback money, and I'm sure not paying him more than Tom Brady, who takes less for the team. Vin Scully says he will never watch another NFL game due to protests of the national anthem. I have only one personal thought, really. I am so disappointed. I used to love, during the fall and winter, to watch the NFL on Sunday. And it's not that I'm not some great patriot. I was in the Navy for a year, didn't go anywhere, didn't do anything, but I have overwhelming respect and admiration for anyone who puts on a uniform and goes to war. So the only thing I can do in my little way is to not preach. I will never watch another NFL game. Lazy. Well, I do have respect for armed forces and what they do for this country, but really? I'm going to be honest. If you stop watching the NFL because of this, you didn't love football like that much to begin with. I don't think this is the worst transgression that has ever happened. I mean, Ezekiel has domestic violence. Ray Rice, domestic violence. There's a lot things that have gone on, and I'm not saying that it's right or wrong, but that are a lot worse, in my opinion, than what the NFL players are deciding to do. And it's not even all the NFL players. Eric Bledsoe says he's happy to join the Bucs as it was time to move on. It means a lot to me. I'm in my prime and headed to a competitive situation in the Eastern Conference. This is a great time for me and my family. We're looking forward to getting started in Milwaukee. I had a great time in Phoenix, but I'm excited for what's next. Maybe? Eric Bledsoe has a point. You get to play with the Greek freak Giannis Antetokounmpo, and that's always fun. Plus, you're in the East. You're in a weaker conference now. You can make the playoffs, Eric Bledsoe, and show off your talent. So it's a win for everybody. Clayton Kershaw after World Series loss. Maybe one of these days I won't fail. We won't fail, and we'll win one of these things. There's only one team that can succeed. There's only one team that wins the last game, so that's tough. I think once the dust settles and we go home, we can realize that we had a pretty amazing season and we finished in second place, which nobody cares about or remembers. Maybe Clayton Kershaw has a point. We always talk about sports, we talk about the winner, but they got second place, and when he goes home, he gets over the loss, he'll sit down, he'll be like, we were second best team in the majors this year. We were the second best team. Dave Martinez talks about joining the Nationals. We're not just here to win a playoff game. We're here to win the World Series. Maybe? Dave Martinez is right. You have Bryce Harper, one of the best talents in baseball, maybe the best player in the MLB right now. You have a talented team that hasn't gotten over the hump. You need to win a World Series. You need to get over that hump. You need to get to the big game. That's what you need. That's what they expect. When you have a talent like Bryce Harper, you can't be losing in the AL and the ALDS to the Chicago Cubs the way they did when they were winning the series. You can't. Zaza Pachulia says, it is stupid to think he injured Kawhi Leonard on purpose. After the closeout, maybe I was too close to him, but it was stupid when people said that it was on purpose. There's no way you can work on that and think about it. In the playoffs, are you kidding me? This is such a game of quick decisions, so quick. How the hell are you going to plan that? Crazy. You definitely sheep shot at Kawhi Leonard. You might not have wanted him to get as hurt as he was, but you definitely cheap shot at him, and he so happened to get hurt. So don't play that, Zaza. Deion Sanders did not appreciate Tony Romo's jab about his poor tackling. This is what Deion Sanders had to say. Tony, I tried my best to take the high road, but I don't know the address to the high road. So I got to come at you, man. 10 years as starter, you're 2-4 in the playoffs. You ain't won nothing. I tried to bury the hatchet. Both of us work for CBS. I went and shook your hand, said, Tony, you're doing a great job this year. I thought that would be it, but nevertheless, you keep on showing at me. Tony, what's going on, man? I got a gold jacket that I didn't buy. Dak says hi and bye. Tony, leave me alone, man. I got an ammunition. How many interceptions? 19 in 2012? Come on, man. This is crazy. This is funny. This made my day. Deion Sanders exposed Tony Romo because Tony Romo exposed Deion Sanders, but actually it's lazy because Deion, it was all in good fun, but Romo wasn't wrong in his criticism. Deion didn't tackle. He was famous for saying you got to make a business decision. I mean, Deion was famous for saying it, but it's funny. Richie Incognito says Thursday Night Football is unfair and is BS. They suck. They throw a wrench in our schedule. It's absolutely ridiculous that we have to do this. As physical as the game is, as much work and preparation that goes into this, to force us to play games on a 4-day week, it's completely unfair. It's BS. The league makes money off it, and that's all they care about anyway. Lazy for Richie Incognito. You want to know what? He was right about everything he said, but he's only saying that because they lost. The New York Jets had to deal with the same situation, and the New York Jets didn't have a peep. So, Richie Incognito, as a Buffalo Bills fan, I will say, shut up and just play. Ezekiel Elliott never considered taking suspension because he said it's bigger than football. No, I mean, this is bigger than a suspension. It's bigger than football. It's them trying to make me something I'm not. I'm not an abuser. That's not who I am. This is my name. This is my reputation. This is something I'm going to have to live with beyond football. So every day is worth fighting. Crazy. This is a serious matter, and I want to be very clear when I say this. You should have never put yourself in this position, Ezekiel Elliott. You had the incident when you pulled the woman's top down, you were speeding, you allegedly punched a man in a bar. You went to the marijuana dispensary in Seattle. They had a lot of things. And you were the same woman that convicted you of domestic violence. I'm not saying this is right or what, but she convicted you once. You got off. Then you came back to her or whatever. And then it happened again. So that is a poor choice on you, Ezekiel Elliott, if this is how it happened. There's something that you put. Sometimes you're wrong, but sometimes you put yourself in the situation to be wronged. LeVar Ball has more outrageous comments about his son. He can be bigger than Kobe Bryant, by far. Claiming the reason for that is social media is a big tool. Now, while this is idiotic for LeVar Ball to say, maybe he has a point. Social media is a big reason. Now, Kobe didn't really have that. It will make Lonzo Ball bigger, especially since Lonzo Ball is probably the most hyped basketball player, first-year rookie that I can ever imagine in the NBA, that I ever remember. So that's it for crazy, lazy, or maybe. Now it's time for my man, Baker Mayfield, quarterback for the Oklahoma Sooners. An NFL scout referred to Baker Mayfield as a mid-day 2 guy, which means he'll be drafted in the late 2nd round or early 3rd round. He said he had Mayfield ranked as a late 1st rounder, though, but the NFL's high bias might keep him out of the first day of the NFL draft because he has 1st-round talent, because Baker Mayfield is 6'1". Now, who does that sound like? First name Russell, last name Wilson. 5'11" quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson, Super Bowl champion, by the way. Russell Wilson had the same bias against him, and I was on the bandwagon. I said, if Russell Wilson was 6'5", he would be the number 1 pick in the draft. That's how special Russell Wilson was in Wisconsin. And Baker Mayfield is similarly special. Baker Mayfield is going to be the real jewel of this 2017 NFL draft class. It's not going to be Josh Rosen. It's not going to be Sam Darnold. It's not going to be Josh Allen. It's not going to be Lamar Jackson. It's going to be Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's going to be special in the pros. Big game against Oklahoma State last weekend. Big spotlight, big game, where the stars come out to shine, right? Baker Mayfield just throws for 600 yards. He's due for 16 yards per attempt. That's extraordinary. That's a 1st down and a half every pass. Literally. A little bit more than a 1st down and a half, actually. Baker Mayfield went to Ohio Stadium in Columbus, facing the number 2 ranked team in the country, the Ohio State Buckeyes. And he beat them 31-16. And he literally planted his flag in the middle of their field. I know we love these other QBs. So we have the infatuation with Sam Darnold. But you want to know what? Sam Darnold's thrown 10 picks. He has a passer rating of 143. He's completing 62% of his passes. Josh Rosen has thrown 8 picks. Has a passer rating of 146. And he's completing 63% of his passes. Baker Mayfield, only 3 picks on the season. Has a passer rating of 196. Completion percentage is 72%. You want to know why I like Baker? He's quick. He might not be the fastest guy, but he's quick. He has a little, actually, Johnny Manziel to him. Baker can escape the pocket. He has a good arm. It's not great. He's accurate. 5th year in college, so he's mature. He has this magical feel about him. And you always feel like when you have him on your team, you have a chance to win. Guys will believe in him. Just like Russell Wilson. Eureka! It's all come together. Russell Wilson and Baker Mayfield are almost exactly the same in college. When you really look into it, the similarities between the two are crazy. They both transferred. Russell Wilson went to NC State, then he went to Wisconsin. Baker Mayfield went from Texas Tech to Oklahoma. Both are going to be 23 when drafted. Russell Wilson was 23, Baker Mayfield's 22, but will turn 23 by draft time. Small size, Russell Wilson's 5'11", Baker Mayfield 6'1". Completion percentage, both were completing 72% of their passes. Passer rating, Russell Wilson was 192, Baker Mayfield was 195. Yards per pass attempt, Russell Wilson had 10, Baker Mayfield 11. Both stayed in school for all 4 years. Pretty similar. Why I love Baker Mayfield? He can make most throws. Maybe not all throws, but he can make most throws. Quickness, like I said. The dude has quick feet. The NFL is very unscripted. Sometimes you need a playmaker, a guy that can just go out and make plays. Similarly how Russell Wilson does for the Seattle Seahawks with their atrocious offensive line. Transferred. So you know he's had to work for something. He's humble. He's a grinder. He's a competitor. Remember that 2012 draft class? Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin III, Ryan Tannehill, Brock Osweiler were all drafted ahead of Russell Wilson. And by all measures, it looks like right now, Russell Wilson's the best quarterback out of that class. And you want to know what? That's what Baker Mayfield will be. We can talk about Josh Rosen. We can talk about Sam Darnold, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. But Baker Mayfield will be the best quarterback in this 2017 NFL draft class. Because he's Russell Wilson. Similarly like Russell Wilson, he's going to be a playmaker in the NFL. Now coming up next, we're going to have Chris Crittenden on the show. The host of the Average Sports Guy podcast. Can't wait to have him on. Coming up next on Barber Shop Sports Talk. Oh, we're back with Barber Shop Sports Talk. We have Chris Crittenden on the line with us, the host of Your Average Sports Guy podcast. How are you doing, Chris?
Doing good, Terrell. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Now, before we talk a little bit about some sports stuff, I want to know, where can we find your podcast, and what exactly is your podcast about?
Yeah, you can find my podcast on SoundCloud, Average Sports Guy on SoundCloud. Instagram is ASG Podcast. But basically the podcast, just sports podcast. But the basis behind it was to give the average guy that would love to talk sports a voice that no one, not everyone gets to hear. Guys have a lot to say about sports. So it just gives those people a voice to come on the show and just talk about sports and just kick it for a while and just be themselves. So.
Yeah. And the mayor's pretty funny.
Everyone loves the mayor, and that's the one thing that you never see him listen to. Like, oh man, the mayor's funny. And I get texts from people that listen to the mayor made me laugh. So yeah, the mayor is no one. I haven't heard a bad thing about the mayor.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. Okay, so first we're going to talk a little bit about college football. We were talking before about what exactly we're going to talk about for this interview. One of the biggest things you said is you wanted to talk about college football because you have a lot of big opinions on the college football playoffs. So can you tell me what that is?
Yeah, man. I think that the committee is going to get itself in a lot of trouble.
I know you don't like the committees.
Well, the reason I don't is just because they don't know what they want, and they don't know what they want, and they don't know what guidelines they're going to go by, and they don't know what criteria they're going to go by because it's subjective. So, like, for instance, last year when Penn State beat Ohio State, won the Big Ten championship, and still didn't make the playoff. Well, how do you leave a conference champion out? And this year, the Big Ten's not going to have a team, and I personally believe that because...
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you. Not unless Wisconsin wins out. I think if Wisconsin wins out, then I think they will.
Even if they went out, they still won't. Their schedule's not good.
Yeah.
They're ranked, what number? I didn't have a starter.
Eighth. They're eighth. But yeah, but I think my
committee doesn't even respect them enough to put a undefeated team up high enough like that. And you hear them say, and you hear everyone say that, oh, well, their schedule is not good enough. So unless Michigan gets ranked against Maryland, which if they blow out Maryland, they'll be ranked 25.
But I think Oklahoma's going to play TCU. Notre Dame's playing Miami. Yeah. I think if Wisconsin goes undefeated, I think the college football playoff committee would catch hell if they didn't put an undefeated Big Ten team in there. They would catch hell. No matter their schedule, I think they would catch hell.
I'm telling you, no, they won't. They didn't catch up. They didn't catch up for putting Ohio State in over Penn State. Ohio State didn't win a championship. And they lost to Penn State. They didn't catch up over that.
That is true. I also want to know your theory on this because I know you're not a big SEC guy, but I personally believe that
I'm not an SEC guy. I just don't think it's as good as people say it is. Though.
You think they're overrated?
I do very much.
I think that there will be two SEC teams in the playoffs. I think Alabama and Georgia are going to make it. I want to know what you think about that.
We were actually talking about that last night on the show. It looks like it just because unless Georgia loses to Auburn, which I highly doubt because Auburn's not that good, which brings up another thing. Why is Auburn ranked number 10?
In the country. Well, Auburn's okay. They're not.
Auburn hasn't had an offense since Cam Newton left.
That's true.
Auburn's not a good football team.
But I mean, they play Clemson close in the beginning of the year.
Okay, all right, and who have they beaten? With their only quality win outside of that is Mississippi State.
Well, I'm not saying Auburn's special. I'm not saying.
I mean, like, not the SEC. Like, I'm not trying to rag on anything, but it's just hyped up, and it's not like the top two teams. All right, Bama and Georgia are really good, right? And there's no denying that. Like, I know they haven't really played a lot of people, but they're still really good football teams. Alabama has played no one, actually, by the way, but they're still good football teams. But besides that, if you look at the SEC as a whole, it's just not as what they tell you it is. That's my question. But regardless, to get back to the original question, I do think the SEC gets two teams in, unless Georgia loses to Auburn this week, which I don't see happening.
Because
then the SEC will get two teams in. Because if they lose to Bama in the close game, then all right. Unless they go out there in the last one of the season and lose the second game, which can happen. It's happened before. They'll get two teams in.
Because here's my thing with this: they're both blowing out teams, and they're ranked number one and the two in the country. And if they're both undefeated going into the SEC conference game, I don't get how the college committee could, especially with all these one-loss teams now, they're going to drop the second or number one team in the country for losing to the second or number one team in the country all the way out of the top four.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I don't think they do that.
But to me that
if they both make it, then if they both make it undefeated, I think they'll both.
Yeah. But to me, that would cause another problem because, from my understanding, the reason this whole playoff started was because of Alabama LSU, the rematch. That was one of the big reasons to start the college football playoffs. And I don't think you want to start, and you don't want to start a precedent of having two conference teams in, especially when it's the SEC, because that just looks, I don't think it's
I mean, according to the committee, it's again subjective and it changes from year to year, which I don't agree with. I really think there needs to be a criteria. And since we're on the topic of the college football playoff and criteria, Notre Dame, I get their, have one loss, I get their good team, I get all that. Notre Dame gets to masquerade as an ACC team without winning the conference. They get to play 5 ACC teams a year. They don't play Clemson. They'll never play Florida State when Florida State's good, and they run away from games. They've
only played 9 Power 5 games. They're only going to play 9 Power 5 games.
Yeah. So I mean, they never thought Notre Dame, Miami was going to be good this year, and they just ran away from that. So I mean, like, look, you really going to join? And the ACC dropped the ball because they're like for basketball in the ACC. So you either say, look, you're going to join this conference or not. Like, this independent stuff has to go. So you're either going to join the conference or not. And I honestly think the committee should punish them for not making them join the conference. Now, I don't really like Notre Dame, but this has nothing to do with that. It's just not fair that every team gets to go and fight in their conference. And like Oklahoma is going to go to the Big 12. They had to face Oklahoma State. They had to face Iowa State. They got to play TCU again this week. And then they got to go play a conference championship game just to have a shot to get in. Notre Dame doesn't have to play a conference championship game. It's just not fair to the teams that that have to play in the conference and fight against the top teams in the conference every year, unless you're Wisconsin, then it's just not fair. It's not fair. So I think that the committee needs to tell Notre Dame to join the conference, or it can't be in. I know they're a good team.
So you're big on a conference championship?
Yes, I am.
You are.
I think it's fair. I think it's fair that the team that went to the conference and took the blows of facing the conference and won a conference championship deserves to get in. Look, that's just me.
Because I know you were talking about on your show a couple weeks ago, and you were talking about Oklahoma and Ohio State, and how Ohio State was ranked higher than Oklahoma, even though Oklahoma beat them in Ohio Stadium. And you don't like the subjectivity of it. Sort of.
No, because they'll say, oh well, they played in September and it's November now. But like, what does that mean? They still played in September and won. So I get teams get better as the season goes on, but that's when the game was scheduled and that's when the game was
Well, no, I completely agree with you. But to me, part of the whole point of the playoffs is to have you're having humans in the room to decide who you think is the better team now. Because to me, I mean, while I do agree with you, they beat them on that day. They were better on that day, so it really doesn't matter. But then if you're going to go off of that, why not still have the computers decide it? Then what's the point of having the people in the room?
Yeah. I would agree. I think there does have to be some human element, and that's fine. The only thing I want to see is just a criteria of where they're going to go on.
A criteria.
Just stick to that.
I don't think they will ever do that.
They won't, and that's what's going to get them in trouble, because they're going to do something stupid like they did last year, and everyone's going to be upset, and they're going to just catch hell from it. And I think, that's just that's the position they put themselves in, to do that. But that's how they want to go. That's how they want to do it. That's how they want to do it. But Oklahoma is still, has one loss. That was Iowa State, which don't look that bad anymore. Iowa State looks to be a pretty solid team. So they were ahead of even when the first ranking came out, they were ahead of Ohio State. But I just felt like if Oklahoma and if they're in the same spot and Ohio State was ranked higher, it'd be crime, because looking at the similar resumes and Oklahoma won the head-to-head, I think they should have been ahead of Ohio State. And that's just anything. If you play a head-to-head and you beat a team and you have similar resumes, well, you got the trump card because you beat us. So. Yeah.
Now, do you think Notre Dame will have to join a conference? Because I think if they don't get into the playoffs, then they're going to join a conference. Because then I think they'd be stupid not to at that point.
They've had chances to join a conference from...
No. But I'm saying if they're in competition for a playoff spot, they're number 3 right now. Let's say they went out and they don't make it, then they would go to a conference.
Well, that's not happening.
Yeah, no, I know. But if everything goes the way they want it to and they get in, they have no reason to join a conference. They have no incentive.
I think that's what happened. If the committee says that Notre Dame didn't get in because it's not in the conference, okay, yeah. Or they just complain and say it's not fair. I say it's not fair that you don't have to play in the conference. You don't have to play in the conference championship game. But that's just me. And it's just not fair that you go to the ACC, but you are away from the top teams. But whatever. I just think if the committee says that they have to join a conference in order to, to make the playoff, I think they'll join. If not, they'll just say it's not fair and just keep going on with life. I think that's how it's going to work. Because they've had chance after chance to join the conference, brother, and they haven't done it. So, they could have joined the Big Ten back in the 80s, could have joined the ACC recently, and they just chose not to. And so, I don't know what the thing is about not joining the conference. You can still play USC and Stanford every year. Just make those your non-conference games, but you don't play them at all. You stop the Michigan State rivalry, you stop the Michigan rivalry, so stop the other ones, I don't get it. I don't get why they're not in conference, but, each his own.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to take a quick break, and then coming up next, we're going to talk a little bit about Jim Harbaugh in Michigan, because I know you definitely have some opinions on that one.
All right.
Okay, coming up next on Barber Shop Sports Talk. with Barber Shop Sports Talk. We still have Chris Crittenden with us, the host of the Average Guy Sports Podcast. So, Chris, before we were talking about a little bit about the college football playoffs, and now we're going to talk a little bit about Michigan football. Do you think that Jim Harbaugh is overrated?
All right, well, let me go ahead and say this before I answer that question. The people that's going to listen to this, I know it seems like I'm probably a homer.
You think Mark D'Antonio's better?
Okay, I'm not gonna. I'm gonna leave that one alone. I'm not a homer. I'm about to keep it real. Look, I'm a Michigan fan. I don't hate the SEC. The thing's overrated. I don't hate Notre. Well, I do hate Notre Dame, but that had nothing to do with my answer about them. I'm a realist when it comes to Michigan. Okay, is Jim Harbaugh overrated? I would say no. Here's why. Does he need to improve on things? Yes, definitely. Because the way they looked earlier in the season was unacceptable. They didn't have a quarterback. I thought that was really bad. The offense, I know they were young and breaking inning players, which is true. And I know there were issues with so the O-line has been the biggest problem with Michigan from Rich Rodriguez on. Even with Brady Hope, the O-line's been an issue. And I know it's been some recruiting things, but I guess, I don't know, it's just a lot, and they're behind schedule with that, and so I kind of want to give them a pass, but at the same time, when there are games that you need to win, and there are games that you should win, like Michigan State this year, I mean, why the hell are you throwing the ball 8 times in a monsoon? Come on, Jim, that doesn't make sense. You're running the ball pretty well, keep running the ball. You throw the ball 8 times in a monsoon, that's just not smart. The Michigan State game in 2015, not running to the sidelines to run the clock out, and then not max protecting on a punt when they were bringing the house. So that was a mistake. The Ohio State game last year, they should have won that game. You know, there were a few. Some of it was on Wilton State because he made a couple turnovers. Some of it was on coaching. So, and again, the Penn State game this year, that was on coaching. The coaches were stubborn. Don Brown decided that he didn't want to go zone against Penn State. He wanted to play man. And he got burned for it every single time. He left the safety on Deshaun Hamilton. He killed him all night. And it's like the coaching staff has just been so stubborn. It's been annoying to watch. And that's the reason why he hasn't beaten Ohio State yet. And it might not beat him this year. They would keep doing the same things. And they've lost to Michigan State twice because they're just stubborn. And they need, I wouldn't say it's overrated. He does make a lot of money. And his assistants make $11 million. So after the Michigan State game, we did an instant reaction show. And I said it makes no sense that the offense put up 10 points and look that bad when you have $11 million of coaching. And they still have $11 million of coaching. And they look better the past few weeks, but they played Maryland and Rutgers. But they ran for over 300 yards a game. So, I'm sorry, they played Minnesota and Rutgers. They ran for over 300 yards a game. So, I mean, they look like they're getting better. They got Maryland this week, and then after that, the test against Wisconsin. Wouldn't say it was a quarterback, which everyone questioned why. So they saw John McCormick. So why wouldn't say it was the quarterback. Now we're going with Brandon Peters. He hasn't thrown the ball a lot. That's one thing I like to see him do, throw the ball more. But when I get to be running the ball for 10 yards a game, you can't, just run the ball. So, you can't stop running the ball. You're running the ball effectively. So, I guess I don't know if I answered your question. Do I think he's overrated? No. Does he do a lot to draw attention to himself? Yes. But it is year 3. I think the biggest issue is last year, if they would have won and went to the Big Ten title game last year, which they should have beat Ohio State, I'm not even talking about the spot. There are other things in the game they could have done to win that game. So if they go to the Big Ten championship last year, I think this year is all right, well, you know what? They're breaking in a new team. They got a lot of young players. They got freshmen. They got young receivers out there that don't even know how to. Donovan Peoples-Jones is athletic to go and get out. He doesn't know how to run the route because at DPS schools don't run the route trees. You got a trip up the school, so the athletes are really good, but you're so much better than everyone else in the state to go out there and play and make a play. He doesn't really know how to run routes. That's why Tariq Black going down, who was their more polished receiver, was such a huge loss because, quite frankly, the other guys don't know what they're out there doing. You got one guy who kind of does. It kind of hurts to lose that. He lost a starting quarterback, and O-line's not good. So I don't think he's overrated. I just think that he needs to get it together, if that answers your question. He has some things he needs to improve on. But no, I think he's still a good coach. Yeah.
Okay. So, I've always been under the impression about Harbaugh is, and the reason I don't think he's overrated, I think I would say most people would say he's a He's a top 10 coach. And I think, given that, I mean, can you really say a top 10 coach is overrated? I mean, maybe, but I mean, I don't think people are comparing him to Nick Saban, and the guy that.
I think a lot of that comes with the media that he draws. So if he was just kind of laying back and just being chill out, I don't think people would be upset. But when you listen to people like Paul Feinbaum, rag on Jim Harbaugh, and Jim Harbaugh brings a lot of it on himself by, you know, my brother, he hates Michigan, so he always brings up Migos and sleepovers with the kids, which, I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do, bro. So I'm not gonna kill him on that because everyone has their own style. But I just think everything that he does to bring attention to Michigan, and now it's here, and it just look kind of bad, I think that's why everyone was like, oh, Jim Harbaugh this and blah, blah, blah. But, like, he's still a good coach. He just has things to improve on. And so I'm not saying he's overrated. I just think he has things he needs to improve on because he should be. It's just it's a little things. Like I said, the Michigan State game the first year, I think he runs to they can't run the ball. So instead of running it up the middle, you run to the side, you kill some clock. You kill an extra 3 seconds off. There were 10 seconds left in the game on fourth down. You kill an extra 3 seconds on every play. There's 1 second left. At that point, you can just, run around and take a knee or take a safety for all I care. Or just run about. Because the game's over with. So it's just little stuff like that, which I think is what he needs to improve on. I think he will. And if he has to fire one of his assistants, then let him know at the end of the year to improve the offense. I wouldn't be opposed to that. But it looks like they're getting it together. So as long as they get a quarterback next year, I think they'll be okay. So I don't think he's overrated. I think he needs to improve on.
Yeah. Now I want to ask you about it, and you're not as close to the situation, but I want to ask you about Jimbo Fisher and what's going on there with Florida State. Do you think it's time to look at Jimbo a little cross-eyed? Because they lost to Bowling Green last weekend.
Yeah. Jimbo.
And FSU is probably, I think most people would say, is a top 5 program.
Yeah, Jimbo needs to fire all of his assistants and let them go. I was talking to a Florida State fan on my job, and he's like, how do you have 4 first-round draft picks on the defense that can't stop anyone? I said, well, you know what? You have a good point there, man. So I think for Jimbo, his biggest thing is firing the assistants and getting someone who can fix that offensive line. That's the entire problem. The offensive line is atrocious. It's been bad for a few years now. Even in the bowl game, actually, Michigan was just tearing them apart. They won, but couldn't Dalvin Cook, though. Dalvin Cook had, he kind of fixed a lot of their problems. But, and I know that the quarterback, Francois, got hurt, but that O-line is the problem. So I think Jimbo just needs to get someone in to fix, because they have athletes, they have talent. He just needs to get someone in to fix that O-line, because that's the real problems. Blackman was a freshman, so I think he'll be in the competition next year with Francois if he comes back. So I don't think Jimbo maybe, but I think if he finds his assistants and he gets new ones and they improve, all right, he's fine. But if they don't, in the next 2 years, I think you got to start looking. And they start questioning him, LSU's going to come call us.
Because right now, Jimbo Fisher to me is looking a lot like Gene Chizik at Auburn when he had Cam Newton and they had that one magical run and they won the national championship. With Jimbo having Jameis Winston, to me, that's what Jimbo Fisher's starting to look like. Because
yeah, it's tough. I get what you're saying. That's tough though. I get what you're saying. I definitely get what you're saying. I think Jimbo's a better coach than Gene Chizik.
Oh no, I would agree with you too, but it's not. You can't. A team like Florida State should not be losing to Bowling Green. You have too many 5-star, 4-star recruits on that same team to be losing to Bowling Green.
Man, I've seen Michigan lose to some worse teams, bro. So it's possible. Let me tell you that.
And you can't be 2-5. 2-5.
Well, it's not acceptable, but yeah, I don't know. I just, like I said, I just think that he needs to get some new assistants in there and go from there. I think if he gets new assistants, that'll definitely help him out. They're 3-5 right now. They got Clemson this week. Next week they got Delaware State, so they'll shoot win that one. They'll go to the 4 win. and then they got Florida to end the season. Wow. If you want to talk about a bad football game, watch that. Actually, don't watch that. That might be bad for your eyes. I know it was a game against, I think it was Louisiana Monroe that got canceled, but now they want to schedule it because, and it's funny that game got rescheduled so they can try and make a bowl game, which I don't think will happen because, well, you know what, Florida's so bad, it just might happen.
Now
they might look up and make a bowl game.
Now I do want to ask you this quick question. Paul Feinbaum, you mentioned him a little bit. He said that Alabama shouldn't be penalized for not playing teams because he said when Alabama played Florida State was the third team in the country. And I know you disagree with that, but I wanted to ask you why.
Why I disagree with that?
Yes. Because he's saying that when they beat Florida State was really the third-ranked team at the time. So that's a really impressive win.
They were, and you see what they really were. Michigan beat Florida, and you see what Florida is. So no one's going to count that win for Michigan for beating Florida. So I don't want to hear that. Oh, well, I mean, at the time, yeah, but we saw what they really were. So you didn't play anybody. You saw this team is bad. So, I mean, they should be penalized for not playing anybody. But they don't play anybody in the SEC. So, I mean, what is Paul Feinbaum? See, that's the problem I have with Paul Feinbaum. I'm not even going to get into Paul Feinbaum. That's another topic for another day. That guy gives me a headache. But, I mean, I get what he's saying, that they were number 3 at the time. And are they number 3 now?
Nope.
Did they look like number 3 at the time that they played?
Yes, they were.
No. So, Paul, come on now. So they should be able to go to playoff every year by playing cupcakes. Gotcha.
I love it.
Okay, if you had to go to the playoff every year. All right, Paul.
I love it. Now, I want to segue to college basketball a little bit. I want to ask you really quickly about this LiAngelo Ball incident going on in China.
Let me just go ahead and say, I'm on a big baller train. I am a big baller myself. I support big baller brands.
So do I. I love it.
LiAngelo Ball was just being a 19-year-old kid, which is just being stupid. So, not making an excuse for him because he shouldn't have done it, but he's just being a 19-year-old kid. He's just being stupid. Now, the repercussions for being stupid. I mean, you know, you do dumb things, and you got to face the consequences. Well, you might have to face Chinese jail or prison for 3 years, which...
They said 3 to 10. They said 3 to 10.
Well, if you think American prison's bad, try being a black man in a Chinese prison.
Yeah, no.
It's not gonna go too well. That's gonna be very bad. It might. That's not gonna go over well. It's not gonna go well at all. So I mean, I hope he gets off, and I hope he doesn't do anything like this again. I don't even know why he was trying to steal. I've been around, and you've probably been around kids like this too. Personally, to me, he could have just been with his teammates. Could have been the one stealing the stuff, and he could have just been with them. To me, it could have been just. True, right. It could have been just as simple as that. Because I've known situations where that's happened to people. It doesn't necessarily mean he had to be the one stealing it. If he's coming up with his because if he's coming up with his boys and they stealing stuff, I mean they're looking at all 3 of them. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah. It's. I guess they're not really see what happened. Yeah. So I guess that's to talk about. But based off what you hear LiAngelo Ball got called for shoplifting. Yeah. So, of course, since he's a big name, they're going to throw his name out there. They say LiAngelo Ball and teammates, you know. So, even if he was the one stealing, of course, they're going to use his name because he has a big name. He has the ball behind his name. They have the spotlight right now. So, that's what they're going to use his name. So, I guess under the assumption that he did it, or maybe he didn't do it. You're right. Maybe it's his teammates, but he caught the blame for it. So
now, because here's my thing. Shannon Sharp mentioned this a couple of days ago, and he said Shannon Sharp thinks this is a publicity stunt. And I thought about it for a second, but I thought maybe there's some merit to that. Shannon Sharp.
Okay.
And he said that because I don't know if you listened to LeVar Ball, but LeVar Ball was like, it's not a big deal, you know. LeVar Ball's shooting LeVar Ball's also still shooting his reality TV show in China, I believe, while this is going on, I think.
They are.
So I'm like, you know, LeVar Ball's not an idiot. Like, his son might be. He spent 3 to 10 years.
He does say some crazy things.
Like,
he's not an idiot.
Yeah, I don't think he would be sitting, like, acting that comfortably and acting that arrogant if his son was in that type of situation.
He always does. Never. When does he not act like that? I have a hard time believing he have his. I just don't. No, I don't think it might be.
Yeah, and to me, shooting the Facebook thing, maybe it's just how LeVar Ball is, but to me, like, let me put it to you this way: if that was me in that situation, my dad would be like, I mean, I'd be scared to know what's gonna happen to me when I get back home, but.
I think for him, he's always like that. So he's always just kind of nonchalant, kind of going with the flow.
Yeah.
I think that if his son was really in trouble, I think he wouldn't let you know it. And if he was really upset, he wouldn't let you know it. Just because.
But to me, why are you shooting the Facebook thing? I don't know. Maybe it's just. And I think he's just smarter than all of us, and that's probably why we keep criticizing him. And in the media, he's making all this money and he's doing all these things. Maybe he's just smarter than everybody else. But I don't. Part of it irks me a little bit that he's so carefree about this.
I mean, but what do you want him to go up and say? Do you want him to go say, "Oh, this is unacceptable"?
I'd rather have him say nothing. Say nothing.
Nothing, as opposed to everybody making a big deal.
I mean, because the Chinese government right now is probably looking at him and be like, "Oh, you don't respect our government? You're supposed to like show."
I don't think that's how they feel. I think, when he's obviously been there and been around the situation. So what he shows off the camera is probably a lot different than what he shows on the camera. So on the camera, he's like, "Oh, it's no big deal," because what does everyone want to see him blow up and be upset, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, "All right, you know what? It's no big deal. We just gonna get by it, But he doesn't feel that way. His son was in jail for shoplifting. He doesn't act. If he, I look. There's no dad that I know who'd be like, "You know what, son? It's okay." That wouldn't be upset with their son that was in jail for shoplifting in another country. I mean, in jail at all. So, like, if my dad got me in jail, he'd probably leave me there because he said, "You got yourself there, so you get yourself out." So he'd probably leave me there. He'd come get me eventually. But I think his dad was more serious at the station, or in person, I believe, as he was on camera. I don't think he was actually feeling like the same way on camera that he did in person. So.
Okay. And before you go, Chris, I want to ask you this quick question on just college sports in general. Do you think college athletes should be paid?
I do.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Thank you. I want to give you a hand.
I think the money that the teams make, I know people say, "Well, they get a free scholarship." Okay. How much does a team make off a player?
Shoot.
Doesn't equal a scholarship.
I mean, if you're worth $5 million, I mean, you can just pay the scholarship outright.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't. I know it's touchy to see how they will pay players and stuff like that, but I think they need to figure something out.
Yeah,
and I know. And I actually wrote a story on that for class last year, and I go to Georgia State. So I talked to the baseball coach there. I talked to a couple other coaches there. One of the coaches said they should be paid. Another one said it's tough, and I got where he was coming from. A school like Georgia State doesn't have the refund, like the resources, like a school like Alabama does, to be able to pay it. Like Alabama football makes so much money that it could probably fund the entire school. But
it does fund the entire school.
And the players don't see any of it,
Now,
and then they get in trouble for taking cars or taking money,
yeah,
or taking clothes. So it's not fair. You see stories of guys that say they're hungry. They go out there and put their lives on. Look, I know NFL is dangerous, but football as a whole is dangerous. And they put their lives on the line every week to entertain the fans, and they don't see anything from it. So
yeah. And here's where I draw the line with this. I think I think the perfect scenario is you have at 18 years old. Well, this is what I think you should have. First, in college football in general, and college basketball, for college sports in general, I think what you should have is you should be able to make money off your own likeness.
I do.
Because then when I think you can make money. Like a star volleyball player can make money if she wants to do a clinic for some team, right? Some high school probably pay her somebody to do, if she's a top volleyball player, right? She can do a clinic, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fair, then it starts becoming fair for everybody. If you're the top basketball player and you want to write your name and sell them paraphernalia and stuff, you can do that. I think that is very reasonable. If somebody wants you in a commercial, you can do that. Like, I think that's very simple. It costs no money from the school at all. It's all you.
Right.
And the school doesn't even have to pay you. And they're still making money off you. So to me, that is the easiest thing they can do. And then what I think...
You know what? I agree.
And then what I think they should do for football and basketball, I think you should be able to come out when you're 18 if that's what you choose to do. And then I think...
Okay, football, though.
Well, no. And here's the reason with football. Well, because I was thinking about this at 18 years old, but I don't think many kids would come out for football at 18 years old. And I think only it'd really be special situations like guys like Adrian Peterson that could have physically handled it. But to me, the thing is, people can join the military at 18 years old. So are we telling you you can shoot a gun at somebody, but you can't get hit? I mean,
I agree with what you're saying.
And I don't even think for most football players, I don't think most football players would come out at 18 anyway.
You'd be crazy to try because you can get yourself killed. If you try to be a high school and play against an NFL player,
I think only guys like with Adrian Peterson, like that type of talent, and I think a guy like Adrian Peterson probably could have done it maybe at 18 years old.
Yeah, it still would have been tough.
But
you gotta realize that you're going against, and this is the thing with NBA too. Like people don't realize that you're 19 years old, going against grown men every night.
Yeah,
not everyone's gonna light the world on fire, and everyone's all on lines.
But then to me also, I think there's also it's protection. I think when you're 18, you're grown. You're legally grown. You can do if that's what you want to do. If that's what you want to do, then you have to suffer the consequences. I think.
Well, I mean, I guess you technically legally aren't grown. You're somewhat, but you aren't really fully grown until you're like 21.
No, I know, but I'm saying legally in terms of if you're signing the paper, you're the one signing the paperwork. It's not mom and dad anymore.
Yeah, I think NBA players should be allowed to go if they want to go. Football players, no, because you get yourself killed. And even basketball players, man, it's hard. You're 18 years old going up against grown men every day. Up until last year, you were living at home with your mom. Your mom was cooking meals. Now you got to cook. Yeah. You got to live. You got to shop for yourself. And you got to live in your own. Yeah, like, it's tough.
And even for the NFL, I personally, the reason why I'm a little pro NFL coming out at 18, I don't think NFL players. I don't think most kids would come out. I don't. I mean, if a bunch of them were, then I would change my mind on that. Trust me, I would change my mind on that. But I think if only like one or two comes out a year, then I
still don't think that's good. I really don't, man. I really, because it's rare that you see a kid physically gifted enough to just go out there and play against grown men every day and professional NFL players. That's the subject. That's something where I don't think that.
Because you see these guys coming up in pro boxing when they're like 14.
That's true. Boxing is different. Boxing is a lot different.
I mean, you getting punched in the face by a grown man.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what you want to do. That's what you want to do. And I mean, if football players want to go out at 18 and they want to go out and they want to go to the NFL.
No, I don't agree with it, but I'm saying they should have the freedom to make that decision.
That's what I'm saying. So if they want to go and do it, then you go ahead and do it. Your career's going to be short-lived because and if you, like, CTE is serious, right? So your chance to get CTE, like, automatically jump higher than anyone else that would have gone to college and played. Because the issue going to say, look, in college, I don't agree with the targeting rule, but it's there. You got things like that to try and prevent those types of measures, and even in the NFL, but college hits aren't as hard as they are in the NFL. Yeah, so, I mean, like you said, there's a guy who's good enough and wants to do it, all for it. I'm all for guys making money, but I don't agree with that just because this guy did football. But like you said, boxers do it, so you know what? I guess if a boxer can do it, then football player can do it too. Yeah.
Chris, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It was a fun time.
Definitely. Coming up next on Barber Shop Sports Talk, I'm going to tell you why the Los Angeles Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles are going to have to worry about one other team in the NFC. Coming up next. Oh, we're back with Barber Shop Sports Talk. I want to thank Chris Crittenden for coming on the show, host of the Average Sports Guy podcast. Really appreciate it. Had some great conversation. Hope Chris can come on again. Maybe one of these days I can come on Chris's show, the Average Sports Guy podcast, and give my barbershop sports talk opinion. Maybe someday. Now, we love to talk about the Los Angeles Rams now, the team that I picked to be the surprise team of the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles, who've been shocking everybody with an 8-1 record. We love the Philadelphia Eagles. Young quarterback Carson Wentz is thrown for 22,000 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, to only 5 interceptions, 104 quarterback rating. Los Angeles Rams young quarterback Jarrod Goff, thrown for over 20,000 passing yards, 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 97 passer rating. Both these teams are loaded roster-wise. The Philadelphia Eagles have an hellacious front seven: Fletcher Cox, Michael Kendricks, Nigel Bradham. They have Chris Long, Vinnie Curry, and all of them. But the Rams front seven is just as good. Aaron Donald, Robert Quinn, Mark Barron, Michael Brockers, Alex Ogletree. All first-round picks, by the way. The Eagles have talented offensive pieces: LeGarrette Blount, Joseph Ajayi, Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz, Troy Smith. The Rams' offensive pieces is just as nice. Todd Gurley, Sammy Watkins, Tavon Austin, Robert Woods, and Chris Kupp. But with all this, these young talented teams with 2 young talented quarterbacks that have surprised us up to this season, up to this point, we're forgetting a team, a young team, by the way, second youngest team in the NFL, with a young quarterback that I think can play at Jarrod Goff's and Carson Wentz's level. A quarterback that was in their draft class, by the way. A quarterback that was 15-1 last year. Yeah, I'm talking about Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. The most important thing in the NFL, what is it? Ball control. What do the Cowboys have? The best rushing attack in the NFL. And I know their O-line has gotten flack for not blocking this year, but the Cowboys are averaging 4.8 yards per carry, which is tied for first in the NFL. And they're averaging 148 rushing yards per game, which is second in the NFL. And then Zeke the Freak. We want to talk about young talented players: Carson Wentz, Jarrod Goff, Dak Prescott. Ezekiel Elliott might have been played the most extraordinary football of any of the rookies last year, and he did. Ezekiel Elliott's been rounding back into form. His last 5 games have been outstanding: 85 rushing yards, 116 rushing yards, 147 rushing yards, 150 rushing yards, 93 rushing yards. He's rushed for 783 yards, second in the NFL only to Kareem Hunt, who's been an extraordinary rookie in and himself this year. And you want to know what? If Ezekiel Elliott gets suspended, I'm not too worried. An angry Zeke, a Zeke that's running for motivation, running to prove something, is probably a better Zeke. The Dallas Cowboys. Quarterback Dak Prescott, 98 passer rating, 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Dak Prescott doesn't turn the ball over. So this Dallas Cowboys team, they can run the ball with Zeke Elliott. They don't turn the ball over at the quarterback position. That's dangerous. And not only that, their defense has been impressive to this year. 27 sacks, 3rd in the NFL. DeMarcus Lawrence has been making plays all season. 10.5 sacks on the year. Sean Lee is everywhere on the field at the middle linebacker position. This team will be peaking by the time the postseason comes. If Zeke so happens to get suspended, I'm not too worried. Like I said, an angry Zeke, a motivated Zeke. And you want to know what? Let him get suspended. He'll be fresher for the postseason. He'll be fresher. Dak will be better for not having Zeke. He'll see more 8-man coverages. He'll have to work through his progressions a lot more. Have to be the guy. And you want to know what? This defense has not been healthy all year. But now, Sean Lee is getting healthy. Jalen Smith from Notre Dame, with a horrific injury a couple years ago, is getting healthy. Peaking is a strong word. Peaking is the name of the game in sports. The Yankees were peaking and the Cleveland Indians weren't. That's why the Yankees beat the Cleveland Indians when the Cleveland Indians were the better team. The Dallas Cowboys will be peaking. And I think when they peak, they're going to be better than the Philadelphia Eagles and the Los Angeles Rams. Now, College Football Committee. Second edition of their rankings. They had Georgia number 1, Alabama number 2, Notre Dame number 3, Clemson number 4, Oklahoma 5, TCU 6, Miami 7, and Wisconsin 8. And with that, I'm going to give my college football playoff rankings. My college football first 4 in, first 4 out. Alabama beat LSU 24-10. Bo Scarborough, Damian Harris. With them in the rushing attack, Alabama's running game is very formidable. Jalen Hurts, solid QB. He can throw the ball, he can run the ball, and their defense is amazing. Number 2, I have Georgia, 24-10 win over South Carolina. This team is Alabama, SEC East. 2 running games. Nick Chubb, Sony Michael, great at the running back position. Consistent QB play from Jake Foreman, who's only threw 4 picks on the season. On defense, they're 4th in yards allowed and 3rd in points allowed. Number 3, I have Clemson, 38-31 win over a solid NC State team. They get after the quarterback, 33 sacks in the season, 2nd most in all of college football. Won't penalize them for their loss against a scrappy Syracuse team when their QB was hurt for half the game. Number 4, I have Miami. Miami moved up a lot of my rankings. They finally got their signature win against Virginia Tech when they dominated athletically, 28-10 win. And their quarterback, Malik Roser, threw 3 picks. That's impressive. When your quarterback can throw 3 picks and you still dominate the game, that tells you how good your team is. Oklahoma, 62-52 shootout win over Oklahoma State. Baker Mayfield special, as I just said. He's going to be Russell Wilson in the pros. Baker threw for almost 600 yards against Oklahoma State. But I have them at 5 because Oklahoma's defense is awful. 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 I talk about Trevor Siemian, Brock Osweiler, and them hurting my eyes. That Oklahoma defense hurts my eyes. They give up passing yards like it's their job, basically. Number 6, I have Notre Dame. They had a 48-37 win over Wake Forest. Jod Adams continues to play outstanding football. He's rushed for over 1,000 yards, averaging 9 yards per carry and has 9 touchdown runs. Brandon Wimbush is a great dual threat quarterback for him, 11 touchdowns to only 2 interceptions, and has 13 rushing touchdowns, and is averaging 6 yards per carry on the ground. Number 7, I have Wisconsin, 45-17 win over Indiana, punishing them slightly because of their weak schedule. Haven't played a ranked team yet, but Jonathan Taylor continues to impress. He's rushed for over 13,000 yards this year. In 8th, I have TCU, 24-7 win over a talented Texas team. Kenny Hill, a.k.a. Kenny Troll, back when he was at Texas A&M. 15 touchdown passes, and playing solid football. I like this TCU team, and I have them at number 8. That's it for my college football. First 4 in, first 4 out. Next up, I'm going to give my Week 10 NFL predictions. Coming up next on Barber Shop Sports Talk. We're back with Barbershop Sports Talk, winding down. I'm going to give my Week 10 NFL predictions. Seahawks at Cardinals. I have the Seahawks winning 19-16. Packers at Bears. I have the Bears winning 20-17. Browns at Lions. I have the Browns winning. In an upset, Noah Taluki will not like me for saying this. 17-10. Steelers at Colts. I have the Steelers winning 31-13. Chargers at Jaguars. I have the Chargers winning 24-20. Saints at Bills. I have the Bills winning 17-16 because the Saints are going to Buffalo. It's not the other way around. I would never pick the Bills to beat New Orleans in the Superdome, even though the Bills did go on their own in Atlanta, which impressed me. But still, after that Thursday night performance, I'm going to pick them again. But if they lose this, then I might start jumping off the bandwagon just a tad bit. Jets at Buccaneers. I have the Jets winning 17-14. Something is up with Jameis Winston. He's not even going to play this game, but there's something dysfunctional with this team, and I think Coach Derek Cutter might have to pay the price for it. Vikings at Redskins. I have the Vikings winning 24-23. Bengals at Titans. I have the Titans winning 20-17. Texans at Rams. I have the Rams winning 28-17. Cowboys at Falcons. I have the Falcons winning 20-13. I think the Falcons are going to come alive for this one game, and I think they're going to halt the Cowboys, even though I made a very good convincing pick for the Cowboys in an earlier segment. But after this loss, I think this is when the Cowboys are going to start stepping it up, because I think Zeke's probably going to get suspended. Dak's going to have to muddle it through, start working on some things, 8-man coverages, and then I think when Zeke comes back, that's when the Cowboys, I sound like Skip Bayless now, the Cowboys are going to make that run. Giants at 49ers. I have the 49ers winning 14-10. Patriots at Broncos. I have the Patriots winning 24-17. And the Patriots could just blow out the Broncos, given how they looked against the Eagles and Carson Wentz. And Dolphins at Panthers. I have the Panthers winning 22-19. That's it for my Week 10 NFL predictions. Now it's time for our last segment, our closing segment, the night train as we're leaving. So the Ball family's usually in the news for what we perceive to be all the wrong reasons. But this week, they've truly been in the news for all the wrong reasons. LiAngelo Ball, the middle son of LeVar and Tina Ball, has been in the news for shoplifting in China, a communist country as we all know, and is now facing 3 to 10 years in prison if he is charged with petty theft or something that we'd consider of that nature in this country, America. I think this is a lesson. Maybe LiAngelo didn't steal it. Maybe it was his 2 teammates. But you want to know what? It's all in the end, it's about who you hang out with, who you're around, and the attention you brought to yourself and your family. Right now, LiAngelo Ball is in house arrest at the hotel the team was staying at, and it becomes a sad story for a really talented kid that might get kicked out of UCLA for being in an international incident he shouldn't have never been in. So this is a big lesson for everyone. Don't steal, and surely don't steal in another country. And that's it for Barber Shop Sports Talk for this episode. Great show today. Want to thank Chris Crittenden of the Average Sports Guy podcast for coming on the show. I really appreciate that. I want to also thank Gavin Martin for doing the editing as always. And I would ask if Ashri has any words of wisdom to close it out, but Ashri is not here, which is tragic. But I will say, Ashri says, hello, everybody. And that's it for Barber Shop Sports Talk.
Waiting outside on a porch. I ain't trying to do this anymore. I just wanna go and get the score.